And we have Erik Solheim, former Executive Director, United Nations Environment Program. Welcome, sir. And we have Shri Siddhanta, sir. He is a former Director General of Forest in the Special Secretary and also former National Tribunal. And Shri Ranjan Mishra, sir. He is the Director General of the National Mission on Clean Ganga, and from the IUCN of the Forest Conservation Program, the IUCN, and from the corporate we have and Dr. Savita, Principal Chief Conservator of Forest from Karnataka, and we have also Mr. Sumit Yadav. He is a co-founder of the Global Village Foundation. Officer to the Chief Minister of Haryana. So on behalf of IUCN, I welcome everyone today. And before proceeding further, give a brief introduction of IUCN, International Union for of Nature, oldest national governments are also members, society members, and specialized institutions are members. Globally, the network is more than 1,400. More than 15,000 IUCN Commission members of the species, and with red listing of species, whenever IUCN undertakes this exercise, and based on the categorization of the species or the threat assessment, the species are categorized into vulnerable, threatened, endangered, and like that, and accordingly the conservation action agenda that triggers. And it's in its more than 70, IUCN has played a vital role in shaping the global conservation agenda, ranging from the coming up of the World Conservation Strategy, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 3 Rio Convention, and now post-2020 biodiversity framework. As present COVID crisis is somewhere also rooted into the disruption of the ecosystem. Launched the global standard nature-based solution. Nature, whenever we take a footprint, should be such that we don't and the ecosystem services are sustained.
Your audio is not okay. It's getting cut.
Hello, am I audible now?
Hello, it's getting cut.
Is it better now?
Yeah, now it's better. It's better.
Okay, thank you, and sorry for interruption. And IUCN is having a global observer status with the United Nations General Assembly, and the importance of this is that different nations, they speak of the interests which are confined to their respective geographic boundaries, but the voice of the environment, voice of the species, which is common to everyone, that is raised by the IUCN special IUCN representative at the United Nations. And today's webinar theme is very much relevant to all these IUCN objectives, missions, and goals. And I will just show you a very brief short documentary which will capture the IUCN importance and its journey over the last more than 70 years. And so just please wait for the movie. Thank you very much. And this was a very short documentary capturing the IUCN journey in shaping the global conservation agenda. Yes. And as today's our theme is related to the Bonn challenge and forest landscape. And taking it further, I welcome from the IUCN Global team, Carol St. Laurent. She is the Deputy Director of Forest Conservation Program. And she will just give a brief introduction about the Bonn challenge and its global perspective. And further to that, then we will have a conversation between the Erik, Solheim, and His Holiness Gurudev Shri Ravishankar ji. And further then we will have a conversation with the other panelists. So welcome to Carol St. Laurent. She is the Deputy Director of IUCN's Global Forest Program, and she has also been the coordinator of the Global Partnership on the Forest Landscape Restoration since its launch in 2003. She has more than 20 years of experience in environmental policy and program development, working at international and national levels for the IUCN, WWF, and Pollution Probe, and the Canadian Institute for Environmental Law and Policy. She has also acted as an advisor to the UN Department of Environmental and Social Affairs and to the private sector on a range of issues related to the sustainable development. And she will brief about the Bonn challenge, its global ambition and results. Welcome, Carol, for your initial remarks.
Let's make sure you can hear me first. Is everything okay? Great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm really delighted to be a part of this important event this morning. Thanks so much for including me. I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada, where it's sort of gray and awful. So I'm very happy to, instead of looking outside, be able to look at all of you. It was mentioned that two of the hats that I'm wearing today, one is Deputy Director of the IUCN Global Forest Program, the other one is Coordinator of the Global Partnership on Forest Landscape Restoration, but also I'll also mention that I'm the head of the Secretariat for the Bonn Challenge, our topic for today. So as most of you may know or have heard, the Bonn Challenge is a global goal aiming to bring into restoration 150 million hectares by 2020 and 350 million hectares by 2030. Now, if you can all keep a secret, I can tell you that tomorrow on the September 2 anniversary of the Bonn Challenge, we'll be announcing that we've reached 74 pledges totaling more than 210 million hectares. So we've surpassed in terms of pledging the 2020 milestone of 150 million hectares. Where do these pledges come from? Well, there's 74 pledges. 61 of them are from national governments. 8, and I want to highlight this, 8 are from states or provinces or other subnational entities. And that's a very important contribution to the Bonn Challenge. And then also 5 are from associations that manage land. Let me highlight also that India still has made the largest overall pledge to the Bonn Challenge, a great inspiration to the rest of the world. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of implementation globally, but before that, I propose to take a quick little step back to make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of forest landscape restoration and the Bonn Challenge. So as I mentioned, pledges can come from countries, states, associations, basically anyone who owns land or has the legal right to manage land can make a pledge to the Bonn Challenge. And let me emphasize, these are voluntary pledges. This is not some sort of compliance mechanism, some sort of new obligation or burden being put on countries and communities. It's completely voluntary. Underlying the Bonn Challenge is forest landscape restoration. Forest landscape restoration, and it really doesn't matter what it's called, it's more about the principles that I'll mention that are behind the approach. But it is the first purpose-built nature-based solution. We hear a lot about nature-based solutions nowadays. We didn't have a name for that quite for a while, but forest landscape restoration, as it's being implemented in India and in many other places, is really the proof of concept for nature-based solutions and for IUCN's new standard on that. So we're sometimes asked, are forest landscape restoration and the Bonn Challenge just about planting trees, or are they just about large commercial plantations? I guess the short answer is those things are included. That's not necessarily all that's included. There's many other things. It really depends on the context. We look at every kind of restorative activity and see how it's interacting in a multifunctional landscape. So as I mentioned, it depends on the principles of forest landscape restoration. There's 6, and I'll just very, very quickly run through those. Focus on landscapes, so planning at a larger, like a watershed level, rather than site by site. Tailoring restoration plans to what makes sense in the local context and to local knowledge. Aiming to restore multiple functions to deliver multiple benefits. Managing for the longer term, managing adaptively for the longer term. Maintaining and enhancing natural ecosystems. So if a restoration strategy will harm a natural ecosystem, it's not forest landscape restoration. And finally, but not least, engaging stakeholders in planning and implementation of restoration. So what does forest landscape restoration look like on the ground? It can be a whole bunch of different things. Tree plantings, but also natural and assisted regeneration. Silviculture, active management of forest landscapes to deal with things like recovering from wildfire or infestations by insects or many other things. The active management can't count as forest landscape restoration. Ecological corridors, agroforestry, on-farm trees, riverside plantings to protect waterways, mangroves, peatlands. You can see that there's quite a diversity there. Depends on the situation. It's really about having a mix of land uses. So having these restorative activities in broad landscapes, along with can be cultural uses of the landscape, productive uses, protective uses as well. It's all about the mix. Another question we often get is, who is responsible for monitoring the commitments that are made to the Bonn Challenge, and how does that happen? Well, the short answer is we do. This is a collective effort. The Bonn Challenge is not somebody, big brother looking over anybody's shoulder. This is really about working together with the people who plan and implement restoration. So we work together to get the restoration going, and then we work together to build a credible picture of progress and a comprehensive picture of progress. So with support from Germany, IUCN developed the Restoration Barometer. And that's what we use to assess progress. And it looks at things like success factors. So whether policies have been put in place to support restoration, domestic budget allocations, and then also looks at quantified benefits. So estimates of carbon sequestration, number of key biodiversity areas that have benefited from restoration or protected areas, as well as quantifying jobs, which in a post-COVID world will be even more important as we try to build back better. So where are we in terms of progress? The last report we did, which was progress up to 2018, found for our 5 pilot countries an 89% rate of implementation. So that means 89% of the hectares pledged had already been brought under restoration. We look forward to, in 2021, working with about 40 jurisdictions, at least 40 jurisdictions, let's be ambitious, to apply the barometer. And we're confident that we will find that 150 million hectares have been brought under restoration. We're also confident that we're on track for the 2030 target as well. But there's been other kinds of progress, and some of which I know you're familiar with in India. Sure. Am I running out of time?
Okay. No, no time. We will be hearing more during when the discussion on technical issues will become more. So
okay.
Yeah. So
okay, I didn't know you were coming back to me later, so I can, I'll stop here if you'd like me to.
So let me welcome His Holiness Shri Ravishankar ji, and he will have conversation with Erik Solheim on very, very important this theme and guiding, because he has taken a number of initiatives. His Holiness Gurudev Shri Ravishankar ji, humanitarian spiritual leader and an ambassador of peace and human values. Through his life and work, Shri has inspired millions around the world with the vision of a stress-free, violence-free world. He has designed programs that provide techniques and tools to live a deeper, more joyous life, and has established non-profit organizations that recognize the human identity beyond the boundaries of gender, race, nationality, and religion. Shri founded the Art of Living as an international non-profit educational and humanitarian organization. In 1997, he also founded International Association for Human Values to coordinate sustainable development projects, nurture human values, and coordinate conflict resolution in association with the Art of Living. And he has taken, which he will be deliberating, a number of initiatives for the cause of environment, for the rejuvenation of the river landscape, restoration. And we are also lucky to have Mr. Erik Solheim. Mr. Erik Solheim, everybody knows him. He has an extensive career focusing on environment and development in government and international organizations. Erik Solheim was the executive director of the UN Environment Program between May 26 and November 2018. Prior to joining UN Environment, he was the chair of the Development Assistance Committee of Organization for Economic Cooperation. In this capacity, Mr. Solheim emphasized the role of private sector and tax in development finance, spearheading the Sustainable Development Investment Partnership and ADIS tax initiative. He has also served as Norway's Minister of the Environment and International Development, and as Minister of International Development. He is currently leading the Plastic Revolution Foundation. So welcome, Mr. Solheim, and may I now request Mr. Solheim to have a conversation with His Holiness Gurudev Shri Ravishankar.
Thank you so much. And I think we should, first of all, of course, congrats to Carol and everyone with the progress on Bonn Challenge. That's a fantastic development. I really want to emphasize that, and we should celebrate that because that's very positive. But I think we should move on to the issue as to how can we create even greater excitement, reach to climb higher mountains. And that's about, in my view, about how we can put out environment issues and in particular biodiversity and protection of Mother Earth in a language and a way which appeals to people. And I think Shri is really one of the persons who can guide us there because he gives the spirituality and the language of the love of Mother Earth, which is exactly what we need as I can see it. So Shri, maybe you can start by setting out how you believe that we can really set out the need to protect this vulnerable planet in a way which can appeal to, well, all the 7.6 billion people on the planet.
Yes, let me also begin thanking Carol Laurent. You have done such extensive work through Bonn Challenge, and let me congratulate you and your team. I would love to have heard a little more about you, but I'm sure there is time for that. And Vivek Saxena,
there is a short video
wonderful.
from the Gurudev Shri Ravishankar ji, which was to be
Vivek ji.
Ji.
Yeah.
The art of living has rapidly grown across 156 countries, reaching over 450 million people. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Art of Living Foundation pioneered the I Stand With Humanity initiative, providing more than 80 million meals to the daily wage earners in over 170 cities across India. The service initiative during the pandemic included the distribution of 6,000 tons of food to 5 million families. It helped set up 7 COVID care hospitals and provided with over 200,000 PPE kits. Trauma relief programs were also conducted for more than 1 million migrant laborers and COVID warriors to bring mental relief. To combat the fear, stress and anxiety during such times, Gurudev launched the World Meditates campaign and also personally conducted online guided meditations twice daily, touching the lives of millions by bringing solace and keeping the hope alive.
Yes, Saxena ji, it's good you have organized such a wonderful event with everybody, from north, east, west, south, and everyone. The whole globe is coming together here. And at this time of pandemic, as our dear friend Mr. Erik Solheim said, we all have to be looking at the nature. We are disconnecting ourselves with the nature for too long. But one good thing this pandemic did is it gave time for the nature to rejuvenate herself. Can you imagine dolphins showing up in Mumbai, in beaches of Mumbai, which we've never heard about? We have peacocks on the streets of Mumbai and Delhi, which has never happened. I think at least for last 50, 60, 70 years, nobody has seen the Yamuna river so clean as it is today. Rivers got itself rejuvenated, rivers became cleaner, air quality has become so much better. Here in Bangalore, I would like to tell you, the weather has come back like it was 60 years back when we were kids. I think it's because of the lockdown. I'm sure if we look into the positive aspects of what the corona does, not only making people positive, which we don't want them to, corona positive, we want people to become corona negative, but it has a one positive impact. It has helped nature to rejuvenate herself. We have seen in Bangalore this type of weather after a long, long time. Birds have started coming back. Sparrows have been spotted in New Delhi. So pollution has reduced to a great extent, especially air pollution. Now, what do we take from this? I think if all the governments around the world consciously announce a week of lockdown every year, where people prepare themselves very well in advance, and 1 week of lockdown when there are no flights, no trains, no activity on the streets, people stay in their homes, spend time with their families, I think it will be a great thing that could happen to the nature. The nature can start rejoicing herself. Now, this pandemic has thrown a very big challenge that is of mental health. It's the fear of a disease that kills a person more than the disease itself. The disease can be resisted with robust health, with good immune system. When the nature is with toxic air, when the nature has no fresh air or fresh water and the food is all contaminated, you can't expect human beings to have a robust health or immune system. So all that is needed for these pandemics type of situation is to boost the immune system of human beings, and also to boost their mental health. A strong mind can carry along a weak body, but not the other way around. So mental strength is equally important as much as the physical endurance or immune boosting exercises or medicines or supplements that we need to take. Having said this, I would say World Health Organization, as it has declared, this pandemic has created a lot of fear and psychological problems. About 800,000 people have committed suicide. This is a very, very serious thing for all of us to look into. As we are talking, every 45 seconds, one person is committing suicide, taking his or her life off. This is shame to mankind. So we need to come out, reach out to people and give them assurance. There is enough cooperation, there is enough compassion and attitude of service, a sense of belongingness in the planet, that nobody need to take their life off just because of a situation like this. Yes. Back to Erik.
Your Holiness, I think it's very interesting that you start up with the resurgence of nature, which we have seen during the COVID-19 epidemic. The issue is, of course, how do we take that into the future? I mean, you're pointing to dolphins coming back in Mumbai, or people in Punjab in northern India for the first time in many decades, they can see the Himalayas. On Europe, we have seen bears in the streets of Barcelona, or in South Africa, penguins walking down the beautiful streets of Cape Town. There are so many examples. And of course, people don't want this to go away, but how can we build upon that for the future? I've been a bit inspired by the example of China in that regard, because during their Olympics in 2008, they closed down pollution for 2 weeks to show the world that you can have no polluted games. The same they did during Expo in Shanghai in 2010. But it had a long-term effect, because the Chinese people then saw, well, we do not need to live in these polluted cities any longer. It can change. And then they started demanding from the political leadership change. And of course, they got a lot of change, and pollution is now less than half than what it was 10 years back in Chinese cities. So there's an incredible positive development. So my question to you is, can we build upon these resurgence of nature, this taste of what we can, where we can be, and encourage people to make sure that they demand that it stays like that, even when we get back to the normal economic activities?
Yeah, definitely. See, when we took up the river rejuvenation work in India, it was interesting to see that how planting the right type of trees makes a lot of difference, especially the source of rivers. Even today, if you see, when we see the records of Tamil Nadu, um, there are 87 rivers on records, but on the ground, there are very few. There are single digit rivers, they're not so much. And the groundwater is really an issue. People, they dig deep and they go down, sometimes 1200 feet, 100 feet, and you don't find water. So groundwater recharging is something that one has to do. So we took this work of recharging groundwater, because 96.5% of the water that we use are under the ground. So somehow in the past few decades, this has been depleted. So recharge wells on the path of river is something that is absolutely a, a must for the future, especially here in India, same in Nepal. Nepal has so much of water, but you see they just come down to India, and then it floods every year. Instead, if we can do the recharge wells uh, in many of these places, at the mountain, foot of the mountains, sometimes somewhere in those vicinity, it can recharge the ground and we don't have to suffer drought. So I have a slide presentation which can show in the past couple of years, we have rejuvenated 47 such rivers with public participation. People come together, and it all just needs to create some sort of awareness to them. And a scientific data is essential, and the methodology must be scientific. Just going around and just planting trees on river banks is not just enough. We have to see what type of tree we had to do. A few decades back, to bring the green cover, what we had done is, the people had done is they brought trees like acacia from Australia and they planted it all over the place, especially on the river banks, on the river source of rivers. So it totally depleted the groundwater, and no birds come and sit on the trees like acacia or that family, which are not native to the place. So it really was disastrous. Though it looked green, but it never attracted any birds. It did not attract the clouds. Those type of trees did not allow where the leaves fall. They don't even grow any grass. So such type of trees we had to deroot them and then plant the trees which are native to the place, like banyan trees and mango trees and other trees which attract birds, which does not deplete the groundwater. Some trees like eucalyptus, acacia, these trees are no good at the source of rivers, especially in a Deccan climate or in the plain lands. So this work really yielded fruit to us. So we saw that rivers got rejuvenated in 4 to 6 months of time, and the water level, which had gone down to 1,200 feet, started coming up to 80 feet and 50 feet. So it was a great lesson for people about planting which type of trees where. Second thing was it it tremendously benefited farmers. You know, as you saw that we have so many farmers committing suicide in this country because they go to bank, they take loans, and they have a pride to repay the loan. And when there is no rain or any some situation happens, they are unable to repay the loan, and they end up committing suicide. Again, here we did a two-pronged approach. One is helping them to plan their own agriculture and see what is that they can do with zero budget farming. That means they don't have to borrow money, they don't have to buy pesticides, and they don't have to, wait for those things. River, but help with the natural zero budget farming and organic farming. Number two is we were helping them to uh, connect them with the people who are the merchants who can sell their product, buy their product and sell it. So they don't have to do that thing as well. Then the third thing is we give them the mental strength, community programs wherein they feel empowered and they feel that there is a support group for them even if economically they are crashing. So this type of mental strength and emotional strength really help many farmers to stay away from this um, the tendency to take their life away.
Your programs for the rivers of India has a lot of excitement and a lot of interest. And I'm trying to contemplate what can we learn from that as to how to be more successful for conserving and protecting planet Earth at large. From my thinking, there are two aspects of what you have done right with this. I mean, one is the language. I mean, you are approaching it with a language of love for nature, of the beauty of India, a kind of spiritual language which appeals to people. So maybe we environmentalists, we speak about Mother Earth, and we can learn from your way of speaking, and more speak about the fantastic beauty and the incredible miracle which is planet Earth. I mean, India is such a fantastically beautiful place, whether it's the Himalaya mountains or the western or eastern Ghats or the Rajasthan.
Yes, yes, Mr. Erik Solheim. Uh, as you know, no big work.
Enormous beauty, and we
Pardon, I
need to
could not hear.
mobilize this beauty for. Can we do that better, you think?
Pardon, can you repeat the last sentence? We could not hear. There's some glitch in the audio. Hello?
I have difficulties with connection now here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could not hear your last sentence. There was some glitch. Could you please
I
repeat?
really want to look into how we can learn from the way you approach it. So, because we environmentalists need to mobilize better, we need to bring more people with us. And is there a way to devise a more emotional, more and language which is closer to people, not so technical as we very often approach the issue, more spiritual, more about the beauty or the miracle of the planet?
Yes. Where there is a will, there is a way. We simply have to inspire people to see this vision. When they get the vision, when they see that water is so important, they don't wait. They should wait till a disaster comes in front of them in order to handle it. So they can, spring into action. That is where the motivation, I think, is very, very important to the communities to join in. So we are our volunteers, we have many volunteers who go door to door and help people out and create that much needed motivation. And of course, yoga and meditation is one form of motivating people. Music is another form of motivating people. Another is making them realize what is the danger, keeping in front of them a real picture of the planet Earth, where we are heading, and how it is very important for them to take action now to save the planet. When this definitely takes us a long way. People here in Bangalore and many other cities of India, they would on the weekend, instead of just going and spending time in restaurants, they would go to the riverside. Such service projects, companies would allow their employees to spend a few hours every week to go and help out and motivate people. I think we can find a million ways to encourage people to participate. Unless the entire community or the public participates, no big project can become successful or can be achieved. So this is, I think, is very crucial. Otherwise, we can make plans, programs. Unless there is participation on the ground level, nothing gets done. Plans remain only plans. This is what happened when we started with planting the trees around the world. We gave a call, so we have 2 months to plan with the UNDP programs. So strong motivation was done through music, through meditation, and we could plant 86 million trees in just 2 months' time around the world. So I think people are basically moved by this inspirational vision that we bring to them, and keep the dangers of inaction when it concerns to planet Earth. I think that will definitely motivate them. I think this is even more needed in places like Africa and Asia and South America and some of these countries where not the entire population is well versed about the dangers of, um, you know, not caring for environment. This is another slide. So way forward, see what all the work has done here. It's a small, this keeps changing. And I think this all could happen because we have a strong volunteer force, just like Red Cross or Red Crescent. And when people are there taking a mission, even in these tough times of corona virus, this pandemic, that they're willing to do something for planet Earth, that comes from invoking the human values that is embedded, I think, in every individual.
think you are pointing to a very essential thing, and that's how to bring the local communities along, because there is no way you can do conservation or protection against the will of the local people. At least it's very hard. I mean, very few governments are ready to send police to protect an area if the local people want to exploit it. So bringing people along is critical, and the biggest success stories in the world today in conservation is all about bringing people along. I mean, look to small, you pointed to Africa, small landlocked Rwanda, which is now a front runner in Africa in conservation. They have had a great success in conservation of gorillas. Why is that? Well, they created an economy where all the people living in and nearby the national parks benefit. I mean, there are more tourists are coming. There are jobs for taxi drivers or for guides or for people living in working in the hotels. So many benefits for the local people. Also in India, you are seeing a lot of the same, and the great achievement with Nepal now doubling the tiger population, and India also rapidly increasing the number of tigers. I think is also linked to working with local people so they can see benefits of the conservation. So you have any kind of advice to give to the world as leader on how to work with people so that you look for the win-win propositions where, yes, you protect Mother Earth, but yes, on the same time, you create jobs, social progress for people, and you go into win-win rather than win-lose solutions. Can you advise us how we can do that better?
Yes. Um, yes, this, I mean, it is time that nations come together, communities come together, and see all the methods and means, explore all the ways to stop pollutions, industrial pollution, all different type of pollutions that is happening. The pandemic has taught us a lesson how we can live with minimum, at least for some time. If we can retry back ourselves and think about ourselves, what is that we want, and spend quality time with the families, and spend time in a more creative and productive manner, and let the nature rejuvenate herself. You see, nature is very resilient. This is what we found out now. And the government of India is doing quite a bit in this direction. They have also helping people out in all the through Manarga project, Mahatma Gandhi uh, project for labor in the rural development area, in rural areas. So people are coming towards to bring him to building check dams to preserve the water bodies. Usually what happens with lack of proper education, water bodies are there, but they have become uh, garbage dump yards. And similarly, uh, you know, the river paths were made. So many, sand mafias have really exploited river beds, and they have destroyed many of the rivers. But now with the government and the public and people's participation, and non-governmental NGOs participating along with them, have restored many of these water bodies around the country. And education in organic farming is also very necessary. It's not just enough to have water, but we need to have a clean water. This is the thing. We have water which is so polluted. I tell you, recently here itself, in the lake, somebody somewhere on the path of the uh, stream that fills the lake, they dumped some chemicals, and next day we found tons of fishes all dead. So it's very important to educate people on these things. A small mistake of one person, one individual, can create a disaster for a village, for a township, or even for the entire space. So this type of education in hygiene and caring for nature I think we need to give to population. This should be an environmental study should be part of the education in all education system around the globe. UNESCO should get involved in it, and so if it is introduced at a very early age to care for nature for kids, uh, that can make a big difference.
We're coming to an end, but let me put up one final issue. And I mean, whatever you say is, again, looking for the win-win propositions, which are great for the local people, but also great for the conservation of nature at the same time. Otherwise, we cannot succeed. And we are, in my view, that's what makes me also immensely optimistic. We are in a new phase of international and national development. I mean, in the past, also in India, the question always was, do we want to develop, bring people out of poverty, or do we want to take care of Mother Earth and nature? And then normally nearly everyone wanted development, and environment was put on the back burner. But of course, the new situation is that we have the win-win policies in nearly all areas. On energy, Prime Minister Modi is now putting one coal plant into the shelves after the other and starting the International Solar Alliance because he understands and promotes renewables as an alternative to coal, and alternative meaning rapid economic development while much better for the planet. And I think that's what we need to see here. And you mentioned the role of private sector, and of course we cannot have economic development without private sector. Let me just mention one very inspiring example of how private sector can protect. In Indonesia, there is the world's biggest paper and pulp company called April. It's a Singapore company, but they have adopted what they call one-to-one policy, which is for every square meter of land they use for plantations to develop paper and pulp, they will conserve the exact same amount of area. The interesting point is that the areas conserved by April are much better protected than those conserved by the government of Indonesia. Not because of any negatives from the government, just because the company has all the means to do the protection. They have the fire brigades, they have the helicopters, they have all the means which the government lacks, so that those areas are much better protected. And when they had the last fires in Indonesia last year, all the privately conserved areas had much less fires than those who were under public control. So it shows that private sector can do a lot, and I know you have quite a lot with private sector in India, so maybe you can give us some ideas as to how we can really mobilize the enormous forces of private sector for the great goal of protecting Mother Earth.
Yes, recently our Prime Minister gave a call for self-reliance, even among the villages and the districts and regions. See, if such pandemic comes when we do lockdowns, no part of the planet Earth will suffer if it is all self-sufficient in their small groups. Anything can be contained. For example, this pandemic did not spread to rural India as much because rural India started becoming self-sufficient. They could grow their own food. Even when the trucks were stopped, all the other transport were all stopped, they had enough food to survive for those 2-3 weeks, whatever time is. So whenever we will have a new norms for normal for after this pandemic, I think. So the self-sufficiency among small rural areas, small places is very, I think is very useful. And it is a way to defend against such pandemic, which if it occurs any time in the future, let's hope it doesn't happen again. But at the same time, this private sector companies, instead of having a big factory and putting it in one place, they should decentralize it, have smaller units in many different places so that cities don't become very crowded, or the places they have, they can also give employment to people in the region, and help them in many ways. So big corporations should think about smaller units of factories with limited number of um, people working in it, and see how they can increase their productivity in this new model. So they should come up with new pedagogy of development, so new formulas for development, where it is not just like an industrialized cities of early 60s or 70s or 90s even. So in these years, keeping in mind, keeping in view of nature, how nature can be sustainable, and so also an industry and private sector can flourish with people's participation, where they can take good care of communities, they can take good care of the earth, the place as well. They can also take care of minimizing the pollution.
Gurudev, thank you so much for all your interesting comments. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you, my friend. So, and also wish you, of course, all good luck with your activities to promote global peace, to bring up the issue of mental health, and to help us all in the protection of the fantastic, beautiful nature of India and the world. So thank you so much for taking part in this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Erik Solheim. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, His Holiness Gurudev ji. And IUCN is really grateful to have you during this webinar and guiding us for the Global Bronze Challenge campaign, which will be taken at the global scale tomorrow. But the views which you shared related to the river rejuvenation and how to do the plantation, the right choice of species, indigenous species, and involving community, generation of the green livelihoods, and all your vision and to the mission at the same time, peace of mind through meditation, through yoga, and integration of all this to make this planet Earth livable and make everyone happy. I think this is one of the very key message I think we are getting from through you. And we are really, IUCN is really grateful. Gurudev ji, we would also like to just showcase a very short promotional video for the global media campaign, which we are starting. And may I request to just run a short video? Thank you. This was a very short video for the message restore our future, and that is also one of the key message. And from IUCN Global team, Carol, if you have any message or any request or you have any queries to be addressed to Gurudev Shri Ravishankar ji before I think he has to also go to another program. And Gurudev ji, I would also like to mention that in this panel, we have the best of the panelists, the former Director General of a Forest, and also he was the former member of the National Green Tribunal. So he will be guiding us during the deliberations today. And we also have Director General of National Mission for Clean Ganga. He has taken a number of initiatives for the river rejuvenation. And we have also forestry officials, PCCFs from Karnataka and Himachal Pradesh, apart from Mr. Sumit, who has been also guiding through various initiatives, especially in the Haryana, through various programs. So Carol,
thank you. So I have to leave for another webinar. So, but it's great being with you all. So good luck with this fantastic campaign. Good, very good.
Thank you, Erik. And IUCN is really grateful to join us in webinar and had a really great conversation with Shri Ravishankar ji.
Carol, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, wonderful work. Let me congratulate the entire team, all of you. Please keep doing this work, and let's hope more and more people join us, and we'll leave a much better and beautiful world for the coming generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And taking today's proceeding further, may I now welcome Mr. Siddhanta, Indian Forest Service officer with more than 38 years of service and has served in various capacities. He has been Director General of the Forest and is Special Secretary, Government of India, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And also he has been involved in the teaching forestry to all the Forest Service officers at the Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy. And he also served as a member of National Green Tribunal. So with his vast experience and rich experience, and he has been in the one of the motivating factor in taking this Bonn Challenge initiative and support through the IUCN program, because IUCN is also the global secretariat for the Bonn Challenge reporting. And under his guidance, last year only, we initiated this project. And so welcome, sir. And sir, we would like to request you to share your thoughts that what do you think about what is the importance of the Bonn Challenge in terms of the landscape restoration, and what role forests play in the water conservation. And can you just briefly, sir, give you the national perspective as well as the global perspective and various challenges, sir?
Thank you, Vivek. So nice to participating in this after 1 year when we launched it last year. Actually, when Erik was there, the bookshelf, I was seeing some books on Gandhi, father of the nation. So Gandhi ji used to say, Mother Earth can provide for everybody's need, but not for the greed. And we have become more and more greedy by the day. And after 1970, we have been eating into the resources of the Mother Earth, which Mother Earth cannot refurbish. So in the year Lives with the Earth day that I think in 1971, this is the first time we felt that we finished off the resources the Earth could produce in a year by the day 30th of December. Then gradually we are pushing up. Last year it was 31st of July. But this year, because of the pandemic, there has been some better sense has prevailed, or we have been forced to do that. So we have pushed it back. So now it is August 7th. So there is an enhancement. So there has been some betterment this year. But again, coming back to this landscape restoration, it is actually what, for that we have to understand what is landscape. Then what is forest landscape? And the overarching thing is the ecosystem. So when you talk of forest landscape, forest, you have to clearly distinguish between forest and tree land. Forest did not necessarily mean that it's a tree land. Forest is a system. It has a starting from flora and fauna, everything is forest. And there can be a forest without even a tree in the right sense of it. So when we are talking in India, we are basically a country of conservationists. If you see every individual, every Indian, they by nature, they try to conserve. So if you see our culture and also the way of lifestyle, we always try to conserve. So we have been always there at the top when this discussion started in 1971. from Rio to Stockholm to Paris until today. That we have always been insisting on conservation. So we have committed under the Bonn challenge, that we have committed that we will be sequestering 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in our forest by the year 2030. We have committed for our rejuvenating our rivers. We already have a plan for the Ganga system, and already our Indian Council for Forest Research and Education, they are preparing the plan for 13 major river systems of the country. And we also have shown the world about the conservation of the flora. So this flora and fauna together, our Project Tiger, snow leopard conservation, all these things are. So all these things, whether it's a forest land restoration under the Bonn challenge, or the commitment for carbon sequestration which we made in Paris in 2015, or our ongoing river rejuvenation plans, or the Project Tiger, these are all linked. I will try to see how our conservation efforts are linked to moisture conservation and landscape restoration. So we have committed that we will double the population of tiger by the year 2022, and it was achieved 2 years earlier. So what is the big deal? Many people ask, why? What is the so big deal that you have doubled the tiger population? I'll say, well, see, it's a system. Tiger is the apex species. For survival of one tiger, it needs about 500 smaller ungulates, the cheetahs, the deer. So to sustain a tiger, you have to have 500 deer in the system. To sustain this 500 deer, we have to have so much of a green mass, so much of a fodder, so much of a grass. And for that, to sustaining those green matter, we have to have that amount of moisture available in the system. And there are also co-predators, other animals, other systems, they are linked. I'm not getting into that. So the conservation of tiger is directly linked to the conservation of moisture. So when the tiger population has doubled, that also necessarily means that the water security of the country has also gone up. That means we have gone better water systems. And that is linked to our river rejuvenation program. So if you see, all these programs are quite linked to each other. And this Bonn challenge has come as a very good panacea for India, that we are already working in that. So we have now committed under this program, there were 20 million tests, and our Honorable Prime Minister enhanced it. So from his side, there was no pressure from anywhere, by another 5 years last year. So all these things, that 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide, doubling of the tigers, rejuvenation of all the rivers, and recharging the groundwater, and the Bonn challenge, they are linked, interlinked, and we are getting all the cooperation not only from the people inside the country, from all the international agencies. And I am grateful to all these people who are involved in it, and I am sure we'll be able to achieve these goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, and for sharing your thoughts and your experience and your guidance for promoting this Bonn challenge. And may I now welcome Mr. Rajiv Mishra, sir. Mr. Rajiv Mishra, he's heading the National Mission for Clean Ganga as a Director General in the rank of Secretary. He's a mechanical engineer from IIT Kanpur and has held several important positions. He's a member of Indian Administrative Service. He has served as a Joint Secretary and a Regional Secretary, and presently is in the rank of Secretary. Very rich experience in all these issues: river basin management, irrigation, environment, water, sanitation, housing, urban development. And presently, he is spearheading a very important mission, that is the Namami Gange, that is an integrated mission for rejuvenation of Ganga and its tributaries. So may I now request Mr. Rajiv to share his thoughts on his initiatives.
Okay, Vivek. Actually, I had a brief presentation, but I think screen share is disabled. So if it is possible to do it, otherwise I will share my thoughts just like that.
Sir, it is possible. You can. We will just.
Yeah.
कोई स्क्रीन शेयर उनका इनेबल कर दो. We are just doing.
Yeah. In the meantime, I will start speaking. Yeah, I think it's done.
It's done, sir.
Thank you, Vivek. It has been excellent listening to Gurudev ji and the conversation with Erik, and also the words of wisdom from Mr. Das, our senior colleague. And it was really pleasant again listening to him, and especially the tiger conservation and ecosystem approach which he told. I will try to remind him the similar thing he had also told about dolphin, river dolphin, and this is also time of Project Dolphin being launched. So I think that's again something very important which has happened. I won't take much time on the slides, but I just wanted to show some of these things. Next one. This is just as has been discussed so far about ecosystem approach. So if you look at it, the mission is integrated mission, and today we are basically going to look more on the ecology and flow aspect. Of course, we have the Nirmal Ganga, and then looking at the pollution abatement, and also people river connect. We have started calling it Jan Ganga, because that's very important for you. If you look at all the three, all the Nirmal or Aviral part, without that it will not happen. So we are looking at that. And if you see, I mean, Gurudev talked about sustainable agriculture and organic and ecosystem farming and natural farming and a small river rejuvenation. So these are all a kind of part of this. But coming back to afforestation and biodiversity, again, I think for both of these things, we have taken a very scientific approach. With one, we are working with FRI for the planning, and then in the second case of biodiversity conservation, we work with Wildlife Institute of India. So as was told, it's very important to know what kind of forestry is required, what kind of species should go where. So that's why we basically went for a kind of scientific planning, and we were helped by FRI. Himachal Pradesh, I think Savita ji is also perhaps a part of this panel. So I must thank her, because she was looking after this work at FRI, and then a very scientific, very sound project of its own kind. For the first time, such kind of large project, more than 134,000 hectares all along Ganga, survey was done, a lot of research went into that, and a scientific plan got developed. And if you look at the approach, idea was to identify critical area, the hot spots, forest catchment area. And if you can see, the stakeholder involvement was very much important, and it was part of the whole plan. And what we were also looking at the floodplain. So there are lots of natural wetlands, but apart from that, wherever possible, some constructed wetland kind of approach was also made part of it. And similarly, medicinal plantation. Now, as was mentioned, for Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, the Honorable Prime Minister has launched a major program on herbal plantation, and a lot of it is going to take place along Ganga. It also was discussed in the National Ganga Council meeting chaired by Prime Minister recently. So where this forestry, use of Campa fund, several of these ideas were developed. And this plan, actually, if we look at the river, such a large system, there will be natural landscape, agricultural landscape, and urban landscape. So different approach for different kinds of landscape were made part of the plan, and then the work has also started. Primarily, it's being done by the forest department of the different states, but we involve district Ganga committee. This is again a kind of innovative thing in Namami Gange program, and mainly as a result of guidance from Honorable Prime Minister. He said, when we have National Ganga Council chaired by Prime Minister, let the same thing go up to the district level, and let there be a district Ganga committee to bring together community, NGOs, and all the government machinery. So this is a good integrated force. So they got involved, and as we started plantation, many people joined. We also have an eco task force in some of the parts. Next. This we did not get into the figures, but you can look at what's important is all these 5 states. They are working, and not only on Ganga. You can also look at the plan is covering the various tributaries, the important tributaries in those states, and then the work is going on. What's to be noted, I would like to draw your attention on the bottom part, the regular plantation drive. See, we started with a plan, and the work started, and this really got involved people at the highest level of decision making at the state level, like Ganga Haritama Abhiyan in UP. The Honorable Chief Minister of UP leads this campaign, and he is really supporting this whole program. And not much money has gone from Namami Ganga Fund, but the state government through its own resources and convergence of different schemes, this is happening. And similarly in Uttarakhand or Bihar or the Van Mahotsav, etc. And it was mentioned, we have tried to now use our money, but we are also looking at convergence. So Campa is one, but what was being mentioned earlier under Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So Manrega is another one which is being used now increasingly for a small river rejuvenation. Gurudev was mentioning about several rivers getting disappeared, or people are not looking them as river, but they are like a drain. So now in our mission, apart from Ganga and major tributaries, we are focusing upon the small river, and their rejuvenation forestry is very, very important. Recently, Prime Minister included Namami Ganga in the scheme of awarding the good work by the public administrators. So I think this has been included in that scheme. And then this forestry, the afforestation in the respective district is one of the important parameters to judge the work of the district Ganga committee. And I can tell you, this is the first year, but the kind of encouragement it has given to the districts is very important. To carry this thing forward, we have also started developed a new model with the help of Indian Institute of Forest Management, and it's being called Science and Art of River Rejuvenation through Forestry. And primarily, we are trying to get the district level officers or the state level officers who are not typically forest people. Forest people know it, forest people will also go, but the non-foresters also should actually see the link between the two. And then we have started this course due to COVID, little bit more courses have not happened, but we are again going to restart on online mode. Just one or two examples I will give you. This is an example in Uttar Pradesh. This is Gangavan Kasganj. This is really phenomenal thing which has happened. I mean, various districts, everyone has done good work, but at one place, with the help of active involvement of the top leaders and district administration and forest department, 14 Ganga forests have been created. There is a lot of emphasis upon natural flora, fauna, and water bodies. And this year, 351,000 trees were planted in roughly 300 hectares of land. That's called Bhagirath Forest. And last year, that Gangavan program, which you see, I had a chance to personally go and attend that program also. An excellent scientific way this forestry is happening. And it's also important to see this is very close to the river, and getting such a large block of land close to the river shows the priority being given to the district and to the state to take back some of this land from agriculture or encroachment or non-productive use and converting them into forestry and involving farmers also. So this is what has happened. Next. Similarly, in Uttar Kasi, I will not get into detail, but if you see, there is a link between water body rejuvenation, forestry, and community involvement. Next. Chamoli, again, you can see similar kind of activity taking place at a very large level. And this Motogad River, I mean, very, very good work has been done for rejuvenation of some of the smaller rivers. So this whole system. Next. Similarly, in case of Bhagalpur and Munger, also excellent work is happening. And I will end at Bhagalpur. This is also a place where we have a dolphin sanctuary, Bikramshila Dolphin Sanctuary, and recently excellent sighting of dolphin is taking place. In fact, it has become a kind of tourist place in last few weeks because people are able to see dolphins right from the roadside. Something like 20-30 dolphins they are able to see at this place. So I think rejuvenation is taking place. These are all happy things. And then we have to actually link this river rejuvenation with forestry, biodiversity, agro farming, and then we have been trying to bring that kind of link. And then the most important thing, we are trying to look at the income generation out of it, which Prime Minister has been talking. He has given the vision of Earth Ganga. Once you link economic development with ecological improvement, perhaps it is going to be more sustainable. So this has been some of the experience under Namami Ganga. It's a learning process, and we would be really committing ourselves to improve ecology in this program. And that will certainly help the cause of River Ganga as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience on the ground along the rivers, number of initiatives, and we are also witnessing that river rejuvenation, and dolphin are certainly they are indicator of the health of the river ecosystems and surroundings, and the initiatives in the Kasganj and all, they are part of the landscape restoration initiative. And taking it further, I think if Carol, she wants to add anything at this stage.
No, thank you. I'll hold my remarks till the end, but thank you. That was very interesting.
So these were the two important initiatives or experience sharing, which were shared by from the government side, Director General of the Forests and also Director General of National Mission for Clean Ganga. Now let's move toward the further how the community participation can be ensured through the civil society organizations. And another, after this, we will come to the how the corporate sector can also support the restoration before going further from the other experiences. So may I now invite Mr. Sumit Yadav. Mr. Sumit is a co-founder of the Global Village Foundation and also the public policy analyst. And he is also presently special officer to the Chief Minister Haryana. And he has supported a number of new initiatives which he will be sharing like Mera Pani Meri Virasat and crop diversification, because water table is going down in many parts of the Haryana and other part. So welcome, Mr. Sumiti. The floor is yours.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. मैं हिंदी में बात करूंगा विवेक, तो is it okay? तो कोविड-19 जो पूरा इवेंट हुआ अभी पिछले फरवरी के बाद, ये बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी लेकर आया है हम सब लोगों के लिए, और हमने हरियाणा में कोविड-19 को बहुत अच्छे से मैनेज किया। एट द सेम टाइम कोविड-19 जो है वो एक पॉजिटिव एस्पेक्ट समाज के अंदर वो लेकर आया है एनवायरनमेंट के फॉर्मेट में। एनवायरनमेंट अपने आप को ऑटोमेटिकली हील कर रहा है, और उसमें हम कैसे कॉम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं, इसमें हमने 2-3 चीजों पे काम किया है हरियाणा के अंदर। जैसे मेरा पानी मेरी विरासत, हाउ टू कंजर्व द वाटर टेबल को कैसे बचाएं, कैसे उसको बढ़ाएं, और उसको फिर कैसे हम अच्छा पानी सबको दें, आने वाली जनरेशंस को हम वाटर टेबल अच्छा कैसे दें और साफ सुथरा पानी कैसे दें। इसके ऊपर हमने ये एक स्कीम लॉन्च करी है हरियाणा सरकार ने, दैट इज मेरा पानी। में हमने जो हमारा ग्राउंड वाटर टेबल जहां पर बहुत नीचे चला गया था, वहां पर क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन को यूज करके, जैसे चावल बहुत पानी यूज करता है, गेहूं पानी यूज करता है, तो अल्टरनेट क्रॉप्स कौन सी वहां पर ग्रो हो सकती है, उसको हमने यहाँ पर लॉन्च किया, जिसमें हम पर एकड़ 7,000 रुपए देते हैं जो इस स्कीम को अडॉप्ट करता है। 8 ब्लॉक्स में हमने इस स्कीम को इम्प्लीमेंट किया, रिजल्ट्स बहुत अच्छे आ रहे हैं हमारे यहाँ। इसके अंदर 2,06,000 हेक्टेयर भूमि को हमने इसमें आइडेंटिफाई किया है जहां पर वाटर टेबल डाउन था। तो पहले फेज में 50% जगह को हरियाणा के अंदर हम वाटर टेबल कैसे इंक्रीज करें और क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन को कैसे इंप्लीमेंट करें, इसके ऊपर हमने इसमें काम किया। जो दूसरी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट स्कीम जो हमने यहाँ पर लॉन्च करी कि हम रिवर रिजुवनेशन की अभी बात कर रहे थे, तो वाटर बॉडी रिजुवनेशन की मैं यहाँ पे बात करूंगा। तो वाटर बॉडी रिजुवनेशन और वाटर बॉडी मैनेजमेंट, इसके लिए हमने हरियाणा में पॉन्ड अथॉरिटी बनाई है। एनजीटी ने हमें बहुत अप्रिशिएट किया है। मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट एंड फॉरेस्ट ने कहा कि ये काम पूरे देश भर में होना चाहिए, जिसकी शुरुआत हरियाणा ने यहाँ से करी है। तो इसके थ्रू हम जितनी भी पॉन्ड्स हैं हरियाणा में, 4,700 के आसपास पॉन्ड्स हैं, जिसको हमने लिस्टेड किया है, जिसका मैप एटलस जो है पॉन्ड अथॉरिटी एटलस के नाम से हरियाणा सरकार की वेबसाइट पे अवेलेबल है, पॉन्ड अथॉरिटी की वेबसाइट पे। दूसरा जो पॉन्ड डाटा मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम PDMS, इसको भी हमने अपलोड किया है, इसको मैप किया है। तो इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट का जो हमारा इनिशिएटिव है हरियाणा पॉन्ड अथॉरिटी का, उसका जो मेन काम है वो है प्रमोट एंड मॉनिटर, प्रोटेक्ट, रिजुवनेट, कंजर्व, कंस्ट्रक्ट एंड मैनेज द पॉन्ड्स। 4,700 वाटर बॉडीज को ठीक करना है जो अच्छी स्थिति में नहीं है, जो अच्छी स्थिति में है उसका यूज कैसे करना है उस पानी का। तीसरा, उस पानी को सोसाइटी के लिए कैसे यूज किया जा सके आने वाले समय में। अगर वाटर बॉडीज अच्छी होंगी तो लैंड्स के ऊपर जो लोड होगा वो भी कम होगा, वाटर टेबल अच्छा होगा। तो ये दूसरी स्कीम हमने यहाँ पे लॉन्च की। तीसरा जो हमने काम 2014 में शुरू कर लिया था, दैट इज द सरस्वती रिवर की जो फुटप्रिंट्स हैं, उसके आसपास की जो साइट्स हैं, उसको रीडेवलप करने का हमने सरस्वती बोर्ड बनाया। सरस्वती रिवर का जो बोर्ड बना, उसके नाते हमने उसकी साइट्स को आइडेंटिफाई किया और दोबारा से रिवाइव करने का प्लान हमारा सरकार का उसमें चल रहा है। लास्ट चीज जो हमने हरियाणा में जो हम कर रहे हैं, दैट इज मतलब जो सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है कि हम इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट भी चाहते हैं और इन्वायरमेंट प्रोटेक्शन भी चाहते हैं। मतलब यूएनईपी के भी चैलेंजेस हैं और यूएनडीपी के भी चैलेंजेस हैं। जो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स हैं उनको भी अचीव करना है और एनवायरनमेंट को प्रोटेक्ट भी करना है, COP21 को भी इम्प्लीमेंट करना है। तो उसके लिए हमने सस्टेनेबल लाइवलीहुड एंड सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट कैसे किया जा सके, उसकी एसओपीज क्या होंगी, इस पर हमने काम किया। जैसे गुड़गांव के साथ में ही अरावलीज, अरावली में के फॉरेस्ट को कैसे बचा के रखा जा सके, और दूसरा वहां पे फॉरेस्ट को कैसे सस्टेनेबल रखा जा सके, इसके लिए हमने एक सरकार की तरफ से बेसिकली लिटिगेशन भी हो, उसमें मॉनिटरिंग भी हो, अच्छे से इसकी चीजें कर रहे हैं। दूसरा जो लास्ट चीज इसमें मैं कहना चाहूंगा वो है शिवालिक। शिवालिक इज फ्रॉम कालका टू कालेसर। शिवालिक बोर्ड है हमारा बना हुआ। अब हमारा मुख्य फोकस ये है कि मैं विवेक जी से डिस्कस कर रहा था कि विवेक जी ने मजाक में शेर लाना चाहिए यहाँ पर शिवालिक के अंदर। तो बिना वाइल्ड लाइफ के कोई भी लैंडस्केप नहीं चल सकता और बिना पानी के भी नहीं चल सकता। तो हम सोसाइटी में कैसे एक बैलेंस बनाकर रखें, जंगल में कैसे बैलेंस बनाकर रखें, इसके लिए हमारी सरकार एकदम तत्पर है। हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी नेचुरल रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट के लिए एकदम तत्परली काम कर रहे हैं और आने वाले समय में हम इसके रिजल्ट्स इन 2-3 प्रोजेक्ट के थ्रू IUCN के साथ भी मिलकर साथ करके बताएंगे और UNEP को भी हम हमारे जो बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस है उसके बारे में बताएंगे। इतना ही कह के मैं अपनी बात को यहाँ पे रोकूंगा। विवेक जी धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सुमित जी। एंड सुमित जी has very nicely explained the initiatives by the government of Haryana in terms of the water conservation, preserving the rich heritage or revival of the Saraswati heritage, and also the crop diversification schemes under the guidance of the Haryana Chief Minister Shri Manohar Lal ji, and he's supporting a lot in taking all these programs further. And this was one of the programs through which we demonstrated that how through some of civil society organization and along with the government support, the things can be generated, like importance of the water bodies, also the creation of the database of the water bodies, ensuring that these water bodies are sustainable and their proper management. And these were some of the thoughts which were shared by Mr. Sumit. Now taking further example from the corporate sector. From the corporate sector, ITC has been taking a number of initiatives for the agriscape, and Mr. Manjunath from the ITC, he will be explaining his initiatives at the ground level, what has been taken. So let me give a brief introduction of Mr. Manjunath Lakshmikanthan. He is a regional manager of the ITC, a multi-business conglomerate in India with interest in various sectors, and agribusiness is one of the important sector. And his work involves developing business models and approaches that integrates inclusive community development through sustainable management of natural resources that will have a positive impact on the company's value chain. And their company has undertaking a number of initiatives also with the IUCN support. One pilot project in the Munger landscape in Bihar was undertaken, which he will be sharing that how taking care of this landscape, maybe surrounding forests, surrounding water bodies, can ensure sustainability of the value chain for continuing the agri-businesses, and how to integrate the biodiversity conservation concerns in the business sustainability practices. So, Mr. Manjunath, may I request you to share the initiatives which ITC as a corporate commitment has taken for restoration in the production landscape. Mr. Manjunath, you are muted.
Thank you, Vivek ji. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me in this discussion. When you say production landscape or the agriculture landscape, this agriculture landscape, apart from meeting the food requirement of the country, also meets 40 to 90% of the timber, fuel and fodder needs of the community. And any unsustainable harvest in this agriculture landscape leads to loss in vegetation, biodiversity, and also over a period of time makes the agriculture in this ecosystem less remunerative and make it dependent on external inputs. So any restoration work will have to address the economic benefit and the need of the community there, and simultaneously also plan for the revival of the landscape. When we integrate these two together and also make it a community-led initiative, these programs will sustain for a long run. ITC is also one of the leading players in paper and paperboard industry, where wood is one of the key raw material requirement. So here we have invested in R&D in developing species and variants which are of short duration and gives high productivity and high income to the farmers. And we have promoted nearly 7.4 lakh acres of forest cover, especially in the southern states of India, which has not only met the raw material requirement of the paper industry, but also many other industry like construction industry, furnitures, fuel and timber need, and it has reduced the pressure on the existing tree population. And we have also taken a landscape approach while promoting this forest cover. We have taken watershed as a boundary, looked into the existing land use pattern so that there is no promotion of a single crop in the landscape. And then we have promoted agroforestry as a model for promoting the forest tree cover in these watersheds. And then to reduce the cost of cultivation of the agriculture crop in these watersheds, we have taken up IPM and IPNM practices that reduces the cost of cultivation and enhances the yield of the farmer. We have also revived wetlands in these watersheds, and all these things were promoted through village institutions which took up the whole restoration work. This has enhanced the income of diversified the farmers' income at a minimum of 50% and also strengthened the natural capital of this whole landscape. This has also made ITC a carbon positive company for 14 years, wherein we have promoted plantations that sequester carbon, more carbon than what we are actually emitting. If I take a similar example in our agri value chain in Rajasthan, where we have focused on common land restoration, because these common lands provides nearly 40% of the livestock, 40% of the livestock economy, and also 67% of the fuel requirement of the local community. Apart from that, it also provides ecosystem services to the farmlands in those areas. We have restored nearly 13,000 acres of common land in Bunde district of Rajasthan. This was possible mainly through community-based protection and benefit sharing mechanism, which played a critical role in restoration and also sustenance of these initiatives. This has led to nearly 7 times increase in the fodder availability in the area and also enhanced the water table, flora and fauna diversity, which has positively impacted the agricultural landscape in that area. Now we are scaling up this initiative to another 8 districts in Rajasthan in collaboration with the state government. So in conclusion, what I would like to say is landscape approach in supply chains has a significant opportunity to not only restore the landscape, provide economic benefit to the community, and also make the supply chains a lot more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this was the example that how the corporate sector is supporting this initiative for the restoration. Meanwhile, we have questions, and one of the important question which is addressed to DG NMCG, Mishra sir, the question is that how much money approximately per state is being given under the National Mission for Clean Ganga. I think it means the total resources and how these resources are giving the results.
As many of you will know, when this mission was launched, we were indicated 20,000 crore as a kind of overall allocation for us for this program. And it will have different components. So I think we have flexibility within components. So that was the plan. Against that, actually, we have sanctioned, we have taken up large number of projects in different states. So primarily it's in these 5 states. And apart from that, Haryana and Himachal also is getting some projects on that. major part of it is basically for the pollution abatement component. So we have taken a project of roughly 28,000 crore, 20,000 crore and plus is for the pollution abatement, and rest is for the improving hearts or improving ecology, forestry and all that. So like that it is there. So perhaps there is no need to get into each component and each state wise, because but most of these things are available at our website. So anyone can have a look at those kind of details. But one thing which is very important is when we are sanctioning the projects, we are looking at long-term approach. So 15-year operation and maintenance also is part of the project which we are taking. So idea is that we should not only construct, we should actually look at the performance, and then we have brought an element of public-private participation in that, so that people invest and then they get it for the 15-year annuity. So lots of things are there in that context. And if you are asking only for forestry, then actually Namami Ganga has given something like 400 crore kind of a location, much less, but have increased it. But we have been looking for Campa funds and also tying up with the Manrega funds, and the state has its own lots of funds. So we are actually trying to converge all these things.
Thank you very much, sir. And another question I think that can be answered by Carol. That very important question that it's in Neeta Ganguly, she asked that human development is destroying planet. And how can this challenge be addressed in order to meet the Bonn challenge? So Carol, can you?
Okay, sure. It's such an easy question. Thank you very much for that. Obviously, it's about finding a balance, right? I mean, no one is saying that we have to stop developing. We all know we need to develop to do it in ways that are sustainable. The previous speaker spoke about the landscape approach, and that's what we see as one of the inroads into that. Instead of, racing out and doing this in one site, doing something different in another site, if we take a broader landscape approach, we can get a better understanding of what is it people and societies need from their landscapes, and figure out what the optimal mix is so that you can protect some areas, you can restore some areas, you can be producing on some other areas. As I think I mentioned earlier, it's really about the mix of land uses and finding what that optimal mix is so that we can meet the needs of people and society. So maybe it isn't win, win, win all the time. Maybe it's a little bit more give and take to find a sustainable path for development.
Thank you very much. And I think some other suggestions or questions, just like some good initiatives of creating mini forest plantation in Gurugram in partnership with the municipal corporation, and also some of the suggestions that how to undertake through restoration through the urban forest. Examples, the vetiver plantation is also key to the water and soil conservation. These are some of the questions. There are a number of other questions. Meanwhile, we were waiting for the two more panelists. They are the government heading the forest department, and just now I received the message they are stuck up in the meeting with the in Karnataka and Himachal Pradesh in the secretariat. So in meanwhile, I think it may be difficult for them to join. And before we wait in case they are able to join, so may I now request some final key takeaways from the today's deliberation in respect of the landscape restoration commitment and the taking this Bonn challenge pledge further. So may I request first DG NMCG, Mr. Rajiv, sir.
Thank you, Vivek. I think we touched upon a large number of areas. Of course, the achievement of Bonn challenge, and then what we learned. Actually, we need to really compliment IUCN and all of you. And as things are emerging, actually, we have to look at a kind of, and basically landscape approach or a kind of more integrated approach is needed. Whether it is to improve the ecology of the area or more particular in river rejuvenation. So that's why what we are also doing, or what is being done here, like river is not just one river, it is a kind of system. I think the Ponds Authority example is very good, because if you really rejuvenate all the water body along the river, the floodplain wetland, non-floodplain wetland. So I think a very good integrated approach is needed. And then perhaps more particularly in case of urban setting, I would like to say, because there is some implementation. Because in urban setting, perhaps we have to really integrate, because urban river management plan is not there. So the city, the need of city and need of the river, we have to actually converse them and then convince the stakeholders that we have to plan in an integrated way. And then the way river cities are developing, that planning, whether it is riverfront development or management of water in a integrated urban water management. So all these things are important. And then the biodiversity and forestry, we have to actually take them together and look at different ways of integrating further and bringing community into the decision making as well as actual implementation. Because once that happens, once they start leading it, perhaps it becomes easier for the people to push the program or move ahead in the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And may I request Mr. Manjunath, just key message from today's deliberation, what should be the future guidance roadmap for the corporate commitments toward the restoration initiative?
I would agree with many of the other co-panelists that there has to be a integrated approach and a landscape approach in the restoration process. I think there is a requirement of all the different stakeholders. It may be government, private, and the community to actively engage, and integration of the on a supply chain actually gives that push because it has economic advantage for the community. So this integration is and active collaboration is what I would like to say can address the restoration of degraded forest.
Thank you, Mr. Manjunath. I think Mr. Sanjai Mohan, Principal Chief Conservator of Forest Karnataka, has just joined, but I'm not seeing him on the screen. Sir, are you there? Just got the message. I think he is having difficulty in connecting. He's moving in a vehicle. So I think we will take his views further. And may I now request Carol to give a overall overview of today's deliberations and what role she sees from the IUCN side globally and what support she expects.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I feel like we've heard about water, trees, forests, spiritual values, landscape approaches, sustainable supply chains, and somebody online sent in a comment about food forests. And of course, people and communities at the center of this. I think these really are the key elements of restoring our future. These are all key elements of the Bonn Challenge. These things are absolutely all necessary to be happening together so that we can advance towards a better future. It's clear, very clear, that there's a huge wealth of experience in India with restoration. We look forward to sharing that through the Restore Our Future campaign, not just with tomorrow's 24-hour event, which I hope you will all join, but throughout the campaign in the year to come. So thank you very much for all the very interesting and inspirational conversation. Please do join us tomorrow for Restore Our Future, and thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. So thank you, Carol, for all the support from the IUCN Global team for all this our webinar series, and all the best for the tomorrow's global media campaign on the Bonn Challenge. And I would also like to update to all the panelists and all the participants that tomorrow also we have a webinar that on the similar topic. We will have some other key panelists tomorrow, including some from Mr. Ricky Cage. He's a Grammy Award winner, and this is a background flyer. And we will have a video message from Shri Prakash Javadekar ji, Minister Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Also from Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudeva ji, is the founder of Isha Foundation, and also the IUCN member. From the IUCN Global team, Mr. Stewart Magnus, he's a Global Director for Nature Buoyant Solutions Group and Director of the Global Forest and Climate Change Program. Then Mr. Pradeep Monga is the Deputy Executive Secretary, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. And we will also have Mr. Ricky Cage. He's a Grammy Award winner and also UNESCO ambassador. And one photograph which is missing in this, Dia Mirza, she has also confirmed. So she will also be joining for our webinar tomorrow. And from the corporate group, from the Tata Sons, Mr. Siddharth Sharma is the Chief Sustainability Officer. From the government Joint Secretary and UNCCT Focal Point, Mr. Jigmit Tapka. Mr. Rathore is from the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. When we will have a representatives from the PCCFs from UP. UP is undertaking massive plantation drive, which he will be sharing about the Guinness Book of World Record. Then Mr. Deepak Kumar Singh, Principal Secretary, Bihar, he will be speaking about the initiatives of restoration in Bihar, and Mr. Lokesh Jaiswal, additional PCCF from Telangana. So our request is to join also tomorrow and also involve others also for the joining for tomorrow's webinar, and also through the Twitter handle of the IUCN Global Media Campaign, through various social media tools and other initiatives, take this message further. So whatever are the good messages or takeaways from the today's deliberations in terms of how to take care, because forest landscape restoration is not just the forest, it is beyond forest. You have to think in terms of the landscape, water, surrounding water bodies and everything. And with these words, I thank everyone for today's participating for the today's webinar, and especially all the eminent panelists, Gurudev, Shri Ravishankar ji, Erik Solheim, who also joined, and Carol from the IUCN Global team, Rajiv, Ranjan, Mishra sir, Director General from the NMCG, Mr. Siddhanta, former Director General of Forest and Special Secretary, and Mr. Manjunath from the corporate sector, Mr. Sumit from the Global Village Foundation. And somehow, because of some the two panelists could not join, and we are also now completed our time slot also. And with these words, on behalf of IUCN, I thank everyone once again, and for all the support, participation, and guidance for taking this movement further. Thank you very much. Thank you.